If you're like me and you don't like hand sewing, perhaps you'd be interested to put your binding on this way. We use a piping and it's all machine sewn. So we use piping that we sell on our website, your ordinary binding, and we use this little tool here called the miter ruler to help us get the corners so that they're nicely mitered. So if you'd like to watch along with me, here we go, and I'll show you how to do it. So what I've done is I've cut my border to the size that I want it, and I've pressed it in half to give me a line down the middle, and that line I'm going to use as the line for putting on my piping. So I'm taking it to the sewing machine. I've put on my D foot, which is the hemming foot, because it has a ridge down the bottom and the piping runs lovely through the ridge. So if I just get set back up, that's it. So I put my piping onto the line, and then all I'm going to do is guide it along this line and sew it. You can see, a little bit more to show you. I've put all my border together so I can do it in one continuous piece rather than having to stop and start. So if you can see I've got a nice line and it comes right next to the piping. I don't want it too far away or you'll have a gap, because when you fold it over, this is what you're going to see. So I'll continue to do this until I've come to the end. Now when you've finished, what we're going to do is going to take it to the ironing board or station, and we're going to press it so that your piping just peeps above the top of the binding. It naturally wants to lay that way, so it's quite easy to press. And once you've pressed your binding strip, you see that you do have some uneven edges, and this is the stage where if you want to you can trim them up. And what I use is I usually use my cutting ruler, and what I do is I lay one of these lines along the line where the binding is, where the piping has been fitted, and it gives me a little bit of an edge at the side. And my binding is, I'm cutting it 1 1/4 inches to the piping. Now you can cut it whatever size you want your binding to be. This is the size that I like to use. I started off with a 2 3/4 piece of fabric, and I just move it along and replace the ruler. And it's very easy to bring along on the line. Use your nail, pull it out. Looks a bit fiddly, but it doesn't take very long at all. Ooh. Now you're going to start on the wrong side of your quilt. That's very important, otherwise your piping comes to the back. Here's my piping. This is the good side, and I'm putting the side with all the piping binding to the back. Don't put it to the edge or you'll have nothing to do your mitering with. Leave yourself a good 2 or 3 inches, and what you're going to do is you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam, and you start a 1/4 inch in. That's very important. My machine does a little fixing stitch, and off we go. I'll just move my machine along a little bit so I've got somewhere to put my quilt, otherwise it hangs very heavy and pulls your binding. Of course, if you're sitting on it, it doesn't help. So I'm going to come along now and just sew a 1/4 inch seam. Take that piece of thread, finger along, and there's a line there where the 1/4 inch is. And all I have to do is put my needle into that line and off I go. Remember not to let your quilt hang over the edge, or else it'll be heavy on your machine. we've done, just so that we remember. We have sewn the piping down the centre of the binding. We've then trimmed it to whatever width we want the binding to be. We've brought it to our quilt and we have now sewn it onto the back of our quilt with a 1/4 inch seam at each corner. So each corner we have folded the corner back, brought the quilt and sewn another 1/4 inch. Now we're going to take it to the ironing station and we're going to press it. Now I'm only going to press the corners, because that's the line I want. Here is my crease line. It's very difficult to see on this colour fabric, but I hope you'll be able to pick it out. It runs along here. Now I have this handy little tool, it's called the miter ruler, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to place the tip of the ruler on that line and then line it up with the stitches here. I'm going to draw a line, so from the edge of the stitching down and across. And can you see my line? This is where I'm going to stitch. I'm going to stitch along here to the point and I'm going to come along here and stitch. I hope you can see this on the camera. I have stitched along the line and I've stitched that arrow that the miter has created. I haven't come off the piping because if I do I'll see the white stitches and I don't want to see that. So then I'm going to cut this. I'm going to cut it from about 1/4 inch. And that's just rubbish now. Then where I've got this little tab here in the corner, I like to just trim that off because it's bulky in the corner. Then I'm going to open this seam. I'm just going to push it through with my thumb. And you can see we have a really nice miter there on the corner. You can use your scissors to push it out if you want to. Careful you don't push it through. And there we are. Then we can go on to the next corner, which I'll show you again. So we come to the right side of our quilt and we give these bindings just a little press in the corner. And all we're looking for is the line. So that one. Move that one out of the way. Press this one over. And if you press it over to the end, you will see the line better. Give it a bit of steam so you can see the line. And it's created a line along here. So you have your two piping edges together and you have almost a diagonal line here. You take your handy miter ruler, which we have on our website at £5 each, place it on the tip is on the line and the edge is coming up to where the stitching is. And I take a pen and I mark that line. This is your sewing line. Now you can take it just as it is to the sewing machine. Put the needle in at the edge of the stitching. Do a little fixing stitch. Sew to the tip. Turn it. Remember, you're not going to sew right through the piping, just halfway through the piping edge. And go back. So here we have your V, your 90-degree angle. Trim off your threads, then trim it 1/4 inch. Trim off the little bit of excess in the corner. Then open this out. Just use your finger to push it through. And you see how that fits into the corner? You can use your scissors to push it out. And it fits very nicely into the corner, both sides. Go on to the next corner. I can see my line. It's here. Take your mitre ruler, put it on the line. Lost my pen for a moment. Draw the line. This is your stitch line. Take it to your machine. Put your needle in. Keeping your edges straight. Don't sew all the way through the piping. Take your handy ruler on the line, draw the line and stitch. Trim your threads. Trim your piping. And fold it through. Visible thread at this stage. I've also changed my foot. I've got this little lead where the needle should go, so it doesn't matter where you start on your quilt. I don't always start in the corner. And all I'm going to do is bring my binding over and sew in the ditch. As you come to the corner, just straighten it out. Go slowly because the corners are thick. Just bring the needle into the corner and turn. Remember to push under, continue along your edge. Remember to pull it over, because you don't want any batting leaking out.